Hey, and welcome to Dirty Lazy Girl, a podcast that offers realistic girlfriend support and problem solving for imperfect people.
You don't have to be perfect to be successful. Every week, we'll give you unconventional, dirty, or lazy problem-solving strategies. Let's get started.
Stephanie, I've been pretty open about some of my body issues on this podcast, and I'm still working on that. I have a lot of fears about looking ridiculous in like a swimsuit or, being too fat for yoga pants or whatever it is. And this is an area where my fear holds me back and an area I want to work on.
Well, Tamara, it's been my experience that once I face a fear or something that scares me, I gain this amazing amount of confidence that helps me kind of, maybe start with the mini skirt, but then move on to something much bigger. So I want to share just a little tiny story with everybody. I remember the exact moment I decided I wanted to try to lose weight again. I remember being in my bathroom and getting on the scale and just having like a real private moment where I realized, okay, I'm scared as hell, but I'm going to give this a try one more time. So I remember that moment. I remember how scary it was, where I felt like I didn't want to give up on myself. And that one decision, Tamara, it snowballed for me into just a million more scary moments, I'll be honest. But it really helped me end up to where I am today, which is 140 pounds lighter. So I'm really glad that I took that one moment and did it anyway. So that's why I want to talk about this today, about being scared, right? And doing stuff anyway.
Yes, it's so important because even if it's something as tiny as, just trying a new hairstyle or, like me with these body image issues I need to work on or starting a new healthy diet, these are all things that bring up a lot of fear. So we're here to give you 6 reasons you should do something that scares you. So before we tackle our fears, Stephanie, why don't we take a quick break?
Well, we are going to be talking about lots of things that we're scared of today, not just dieting, but if you are starting the keto diet today or recently, I understand and I identify with how scary you might feel. I've created a ton of resources to help you get started. This is the most recent book. This is the Dirty Lazy Keto No Time to Cook cookbook. But I want everyone to know that I do have a whole series of books available according to, what issues you're dealing with. I'm just trying to help people get started. I know that it's terrifying and I want to be the person that's there to be your friend and your resource. So if you need help, all the resource links are at dirtylazyketo.com.
Thank you, Stephanie. So let's get started. What is the first reason we should do something that frightens us?
Well, I think we have to remind ourselves our first reason is that it's not going to kill you. Right? It's not, maybe if your thing that you're doing is jumping out of an airplane, I don't know, that could kill you, but it helps me to remind myself or to think about like, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Right. Like with my, my swimsuit. What's the worst that happen? Someone laugh? I don't know. I guess that's the worst. And that's, if you think about it, that's not that bad.
It's helpful, isn't it, to kind of play it through, like to ask yourself, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
We were recently in Hawaii and my kids wanted to do a cave tour on inner tubes where we went through pitch dark caves for not just one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 caves. And some of them were miles and miles long in the pitch dark, Tamara. We had to wear helmets because we'd be bashing against the walls and foot protective wear. And I was terrified. I was absolutely like sick to my stomach, terrified. And I had to pay a lot of money to do this. That's the what was I doing?
That sounds horrible.
It was horrible. And I'm like, I'm paying a lot of money to do something that potentially could kill me. So I was trying this technique, right? I was like, okay, it won't kill me. And then I'm like, yes, it could. I could die in the cave and never come out. And no one would know because I was like, are we connected? Are we holding hands? No. You just hold on to your own damn raft and wish you luck. And I kept asking the guides, like, are you going to be counting as we go in and out of the caves, like to make sure you didn't lose me? And they're like, oh, you'll be fine. So I don't know. Is this technique always possible? I just want to put that out there.
I would say for emotional things, probably it'll work, right? but
Perhaps.
I don't know. Physical things, you do have to, I guess there are some physical risks.
Yeah.
So you don't want to completely ignore that. But maybe if you acknowledge that, okay, the caving ride does have some harm that could come, like some risk, then acknowledge it and make sure you have your life jacket on.
Yeah.
Ask them how, like you said, do you have people
They
in
didn't give out a life jacket. I just want to point that. I didn't even think of that, Tamara.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm getting
Yeah.
all stressed just thinking about it. Well, here's the thing. This is why I actually decided to do it. Because I thought about our episode and I'm like, well, I want to be brave. I want to try things that challenge me. And the reason why is I want to be that person for my kids. I want to be a role model for them. And I want to prove to myself that physically, my body, I'm healthy and strong. I want to prove to myself that I'm physically capable of doing awesome things. So I decided to take that risk and to do the cave tour floaty thing going, really fast, by the way, like on rapids. And it was amazing. At the end, I felt so proud of myself and I felt so accomplished. It reminded me that I am healthy and strong and that I can do anything. So it was worth it. It was totally worth it.
Yeah. And then you shared that exhilarating moment with your kids, which is also cool. You can bond more.
Can I just tell you that there was this funny moment where
Mhm.
like all the inner tubes were coming through the cave and my daughter had gone through first and she saw an empty one come out and she's like, my mama is gone. And to this day, we have no idea why there was an empty one there. And then, of course, I came in last.
Oh, good.
My kids are all, Mama's gone. Anyway,
that's hilarious.
Side note, sorry. But that is our first strategy. Just think about what's the worst thing that could happen and just play that through. And Tamara, you gave me the advice to also think about what's the best thing that could happen.
Right. Right. And it did, right?
It did. I felt really good. So
yeah. And that's our second, reason to face your fears is that growth happens. People who don't take risks and face their fears become really complacent and boring and stagnant, and they don't grow. It's true. I always tell myself, like, you're not going to grow as a person unless you take a risk, and you're going to have to fail, because we know Oprah was fired from her first job. The successful woman was fired. Oprah, call us, Oprah.
I didn't know that.
She was fired. Yeah. They didn't like her. Yeah. A lot. And I think,
I think you're right. Yeah. She talked about how they thought she was like her personality, her look wasn't right in the network or something.
No. Yeah. And so that's the scary part about facing your fears, is that you're going to fail. And you know what? You are going to fail. All successful people fail. And that's okay. It's just part of growing as a person. I know one of my other issues, I got a lot of issues, is I'm a kind of a people pleaser. So I think I fear that people won't like me, and it stops me from standing up for myself and being really uncomfortable. So that's something I've been working on. And I just had an incident, Stephanie, you'll be proud of me, where,
I hear.
well, I don't want to give the details.
I'm always proud of you.
Well, they're probably listening, but
it
was a situation where, I was asked what I wanted to do, and I said what I wanted to do. So I stuck up for myself, and then they proceeded to just ignore me. And so normally I would just say, and just let it go, because I don't want to. But this time I said, no, actually, I told you what I wanted to do, and let's do what I want to do. I was like, wow, I can't believe it. I know. It was so, and it felt really good, but it was really uncomfortable that there's that moment where you're deciding whether or not to do it, and the fear just came bubbling up. And it's just a tiny thing, but I feel like this is where my growth is. Like, I'm going to stick up for myself more the more I take these, face these little fears moment to moment.
I hear what you're saying. It's like when you put yourself in that position of taking a risk and you felt uncomfortable, even though it was hard, you could see that you were growing in that moment. And that was something that I can tell you're like sitting up and like really proud of yourself as you tell the story. And so for me, I can see the benefit of taking that risk, doing something that makes you feel uncomfortable, no matter how small it is.
Yeah.
I know last year we kind of touched on being afraid and doing things like this in a early podcast from season 2. And I had just been on NBC's Today Show in New York, or maybe it was before or after. But I remember telling our listeners how I was laying on the floor of like the airport, like sick, because I had found out Oprah was going to be on that same show that I was on, as was Tom Hanks and some other folks that my kids know who they are, but I didn't, sorry, recognize their names. I think it was like Thor. Like, I don't know who that is.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know. Well, anyway, I was so scared, Tamara, but I did it anyway. And I realized that putting myself in a weird position of being terrified and scared and uncomfortable might just be, like you said, a moment where I could grow as a person and push myself to do something new and different and take it to the next level. Like, why should we hold ourselves back?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think it's the key to happiness, which is our third one.
Go with the
But
transitions.
I know, because you know, the people who don't take risks aren't happy. And you say, why aren't they happy? I'm like, well, they don't ever stretch themselves. They don't
Mm-hmm.
take a risk. They don't step out of their comfort zone. And, and I get it. It's hard to do. But I guess this is a way I'm trying to motivate people to think about what will happen if you do it. Yes, it will be scary. Yes, it will be uncomfortable, but you will be so much happier in your life in general by doing these things.
Right. I remember, I have a couple examples. I'm thinking of so many things, but gosh, when I was first losing weight and I would go to the Goodwill to try on new sizes and clothes, Tamara, I remember I bought these a leopard pair of stretch pants. They were leopard. Okay, whatever. And I had never worn anything like that before. And I remember I brought them home and my kids were laughing at me. And they're like, mortified that their mom was going to be wearing some kind of leopard stretch pants.
I want to see this.
But here's the deal. I mean, yeah, maybe I lost 10, 20 pounds and I thought I looked good in my stretch pants, but it made me feel that was a little tiny risk, but it made me feel good about myself. And I started to feel more body positive. And then the next thing you know, I'm wearing pleather pants. I tried all sorts of crazy, girl. But here's the thing. These are the small little decisions that we make to step outside the box, step outside our comfort zone. And then, for me, these things kept building. And it wasn't too long ago that I went to New York City and I ran the New York City Marathon as a sponsored athlete from Power Bar. And I'm somebody who had never run until I turned 40. So that for me was a huge deal. But I didn't get to that point of taking that enormous, crazy risk before, like all at once. I had to do little stuff like putting on the leopard stretch pants. Does that make sense? Like how they build. It's tiny little moments that make you feel happier.
They
and
do
risky.
they make you feel so happy. Speaking of running, like you, I'm a late runner and I'm not very fast, but the happiness you feel when you cross the finish line and they're putting that dumb little medal around your neck, like it's just a token thing. But honestly, in that moment, you're just on a high almost. It was like, I know I would love that, that feeling. And I think those are the feelings that you get. Well, even like your rafting example, like during or towards the end of it, you're just, I'm sure, on total happiness in that moment because you just did this thrilling, exciting thing. So there's a lot of happiness in taking risks, which sounds counterintuitive.
Right. It's like 1 minute you're laying on the floor, like sick to your stomach, about to go on a roller coaster because you can fit in a roller coaster and you're so excited.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, you're terrified you're going to die. I mean, it's like real cattywampus mix of emotions. But you're right. I mean, that's why we're sharing this as the third tip is that taking risks make you feel happier in the long run.
It does. It does. It's also not just your inside feeling, but I think people see you differently too. That's our fourth one.
Yeah, because you're like more vulnerable, right? Like if you take a risk and you try something new and you might fail, let's be real. We've all been there. But doesn't that make you like people better?
Yes.
Nobody, they're not necessarily perfect.
Nobody likes a perfect person. I mean,
Nobody.
we have these friends who are kind of perfect and they're always like, they never say the wrong thing. They never everything's like super polite. They never have spinach on their teeth or, none of the, unlike me, basically. And honestly, Stephanie,
we don't like those people.
No, they have a stick up their butt. Really, they do. And
No, you're
it's,
right though. I mean,
yes,
no one wants to be those perfect people. So what you're
no,
saying is if you take a risk and you're more vulnerable, and so what if you make some mistakes?
yes.
People can
People will,
identify with you more.
yes. And I think you and I remember when we first started this podcast, we decided that because it's easy to say, oh, I want to be perfect. I have to have the perfect music, we have to have the perfect words. And then really quickly we're like, we're not perfect. And in fact, I think people will relate to us better and like us more if we're just our more authentic, imperfect selves talking about our imperfect,
Our
like,
dirty, lazy, imperfect
yeah,
selves with
yeah,
very strange ways to accomplish our goals. But
yeah.
no, you're right. I mean, I've looked at previous recordings that we've done where I've had like lipstick on my teeth the entire time. And I'm like, okay, what do I do with that? Like, do I delete the episode? Do I
Yeah,
keep on going?
yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
human,
When
right? We're human.
Yes, teaching during COVID, we do a lot of now lectures on video. And I was the same way. I had another teaching friend who spent all this time editing out the dog barking and the doorbell ringing and stuttering over words. And we have this little support group and we started talking about it and we all decided to leave it in. So
Leave it
now,
in.
like, yeah, I was lecturing last night and the dog just went crazy. And I just kept right on lecturing. And I felt like, you know what? It's who I am. And they're experiencing the same thing. And in fact, they'll probably feel more connected to me and see me more as human because I have a real life just like they do.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. I
Hmm.
mean, it's a risk though. Like when I
Yeah.
first published Dirty Lazy Keto Get Started Losing Weight, when I first published that, I was really hesitant and scared because I was going to be talking about my version of the keto diet that helped me lose weight. But I did it in a way that no one else had done. And I wasn't a nutritionist, I wasn't a doctor. I didn't have all my facts straight about, the biological ketosis, ketogenic, blah, blah, blah. Like, I had made a lot of mistakes and I shared all that in my book and I shared the
Hmm.
mistakes that I made. I shared my journey and I even shared a lot of the challenges I had in, making it work and how I overcame them. But I was really nervous because I wasn't like the expert. I wasn't the doctor, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, should I share that part of my journey or I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, the irony though is that once I did share my story, it was the most scariest, most vulnerable moment of my life, but it's also become the most joyful experience I've ever been through.
Yeah. And I think I don't know, I'll just speak from my own perspective, but I feel like that's the part that people relate to the most. It's not that you're an expert, it's that you're real. That you say things like, "Yeah, I'm starving, I'm a big eater." I'm like,
I
"Okay,
ate
that's
all the cookie
real."
dough and I didn't make enough.
Yeah. I mean, it takes courage to say that, but honestly, that's what we end up relating to the most, I think. Yeah. Well, what's number 5, Miss Stephanie?
Well, number 5 for our tips for listeners about
Mhm.
facing fears is the YOLO. You
YOLO.
only have one life.
Yeah.
Do not live in regret, right? What's
Yeah.
the FOMO? No FOMO, YOLO. I like acronyms, but we
I
don't want
know.
fear of missing out. You don't want to
Yeah.
live your life, this old man or woman in a chair, looking
Yeah.
back on all the opportunities you had to like go back to school, go on that date, tell someone how you really feel.
Mhm.
Take a risk and like try one last time to change your eating habits, to spend that time with a friend who maybe you had a tip with. It's like,
Mhm.
what are you going to miss out on if you don't face your fear?
Yeah. And that's, I think we all have to as I get older, I think maybe I'm more realizing my mortality. And that's the very question you ask when when you see your old age ahead is like, did I do everything that I wanted to do? And did I miss out? And should I have taken these risks that I didn't? So it's a good time, especially just after the new year, is to start saying, hey, have I missed out? Have I done all these things? Is fear stopping me? And then if it is, get out the YOLO.
The YOLO and the FOMO.
Yeah.
But you actually gave me this advice, Tamara, and that's why we do this podcast, people. This is cheaper than therapy. Tamara
Yeah.
is here for me and she coaches me in life. And then I listen to everything she says, and then I tell it back to her when she's
Thank
struggling
you.
with the same thing. So really, Tamara, you're the
Yeah,
good.
it's mutual.
It really is.
Yeah,
But anyway, I remember, I don't know if this was last year or the year before, my family had booked a trip to Paris, and I was so excited. And then at the last minute, I had a work thing that I had to go to, and I couldn't get out of it. So I remember, Tamara, we were on a dog walk, and I'm like, oh, I can't go. We have to cancel, blah, blah, blah. And I had gotten tickets for $119 to Paris.
Wow.
Hello. Yeah. So I was so upset and devastated, this once in a lifetime opportunity. And Tamara was like, well, why don't you just go there by yourself? And I'm all, oh, I can't do that.
I know.
And you were
did.
like, just go to your work thing and then go to Paris and meet your family there. So what? You'll be on a different flight. Big deal. And I was like, damn, I can't go on an international flight. I don't know. I've never done anything. And you were like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
What are you going to miss out? You know, face your fears. Don't have regrets, Stephanie. Just do it. And so I did.
Good job. I know.
And I was like, damn it, I'm going to pull a Tamara.
I was very surprised that you did do that. Like the next time I talked to you, I'm like, well, I booked that trip. I'm like, what? You did?
I listened to you, girlfriend. I was like, Tamara said that I should go to Paris by myself. So I did. I booked a trip by myself on an airplane.
How did it go?
It was amazing. And it was probably better because my husband was with the two kids on one flight coming from San Francisco, and I was on a different flight coming out of New York, and we met in the airport in Paris, and neither of us had cell reception or spoke French, and we found each other.
Wow.
My husband's like, I see the blonde hair.
You knew that would come in handy.
I don't know. I did.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful I didn't miss out.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. And, I was like, you could get all that time on the plane to yourself, girl.
Right? Right? You were all, you could sleep and read books.
I know. Not let him worry about the kids. Like, that sounds awesome.
Job. I know. Yeah. I was thinking I couldn't do that, but I could.
Yeah.
Tamara said.
Yeah, that's right. YOLO.
FOMO.
Well, our last reason that you should face your fears is because the world needs your talent, your vision, your creativity. Like, you have a lot to offer the world. And if you're holding back out of fear, you're robbing the world. I know this sounds ridiculous, and I'll use myself as an example.
I was going to say, Tamara, you don't talk enough about yourself and this amazing accomplishment of yours. So I would like you to tell the world about your amazing talent and vision, because you are
I feel like I talk about it too much, but getting my PhD, it's like, I feel like I say it all the time, but...
I'm sorry, what? You're what?
Yeah, that's Dr. Tamara Sneesick.
You're a PhD?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Well, on the way, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I seriously thought about quitting. And again, a lot of my fears, like, I don't necessarily have all the privileges. I was a first generation college student. I didn't necessarily have some of the academic background, and I didn't have the way of speaking or like they did. I felt like such an oddball imposter. And the thing about this, the world needing my talents, is I had to say to myself, and this is how I got through it, is that, yeah, I'm not the same as other PhDs, and that's a good thing. Like, I'm offering something that they're not. I'm speaking in a language that my students will understand better. I can relate to all those first generation college students like myself, and I'm not going to look at the world and my research in the same way they are. And why is that a bad thing? Like, I had to tell myself that's a really good thing. So I'm making a contribution to my field that's different and new and needed. But I just had to keep reminding myself of that, because it's so easy to just feel like, oh, I don't fit in. I'm not like everybody else. But you have to tell yourself, well, is being like everybody else really what you want?
I have to agree with that. I like the way you framed that and motivated yourself with that. I can identify when I was running my very first marathon, I had read about, they had an Athena competition category, and that Athena competition category meant a heavyweight woman runner. And I thought that sounded horrible, to be a heavyweight woman runner, but I was curious about it. And I found out that even though I had lost 140 pounds, I still qualified, which was offensive and exhilarating at the same time. So kind of like what you said, Tamara, as I reframed the way I looked at it, and I thought, you know what, there's a lot of women just like me who are older and maybe a different athletic shape, and they don't have a role model, and maybe they haven't had an opportunity to win a competition at sports before. So I decided to enter and I won first place.
You did. You kicked butt that
I
race.
won first place in my
You
first
did.
marathon. And then my husband gets really irritated when I say that because he also ran it. And okay, yes, I was much slower than everybody else, but I was in my own category.
That's right.
Athena category.
Yes.
So guess what? I was amazing, and I'm amazing to myself, and I'm amazing to a lot of other women who were heavier like me and slower, and we were all in the back of the pack, and I felt great. But it was scary to do this, Tamara, because people like my husband and others might have judged me and thought, well,
Yeah.
what is that? What kind of competition is that to be a
Yeah.
heavy, slow runner? Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it is for me. And
It
it
is.
made me run the damn race, and it made me run faster. And hello, first place.
I know. And that's why they have the category, because
Yes,
it is a different type. It has different challenges than skinny, tiny little, runners.
right?
You have a lot, you have to expend a lot more energy, and it's just a different experience. So I say, why do we have to compare ourselves to elite, tiny, runners? Why are we doing that?
The
So
point
by
is, though, the world needs our talent and our vision,
Yes, it
right?
does.
And
Yes,
our
it does.
ideas. So we're all unique, and our listeners listening at home,
Yes.
you have a unique vision, you have a unique talent, and do
Yeah.
what scares you. If you're
Yeah.
like Tamara and you're going back to school or doing some athletic, whatever it
Yeah.
is, you have to convince yourself and frame your
Yeah.
choices in a way that are going to help you face that fear.
Yeah. And if you don't feel like you measure up, that's okay. You'll be an inspiration to all the other women who feel like they don't measure up.
Or men.
So I'm curious to learn what our listeners think about fear and why it might help them to face their fears. Tell us. We want to hear from you. You can contact us by email at stephanie@dirtylazyketo.com or via Facebook or Instagram at dirtylazyketo. Before we get to our final hacks, though, let's take a quick break.
Well, listeners, I know there's a lot of obstacles out there if you're trying to lose weight on Dirty Lazy Keto or perhaps just starting. I want to help you tackle each obstacle one at a time. With the Dirty Lazy Keto books, there are answers to common questions and obstacles you might have about maybe getting motivated, how to do the grocery shopping, how to do your meal planning, eating out, if you're working on a tight budget, or even just not having enough time. So I want to just rest assured I have the resources to help you to get started. So Dirty Lazy Keto books are available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, actually inside Costco right now, and also in Target, sometimes even Walmart. So make sure to check wherever you like to shop for books.
Thank you, Stephanie. So let's wrap up today's episode by sharing a personal hack. What's yours, Steph?
Well, my husband gave me some great advice, Tamara, that I think of when I'm really scared to do something. And this is what he told me. He said, betting on yourself is always a good investment. And I love that advice. I think he's totally right. It helps me to remember that I have all the power to push myself. Taking risks gets easier and it builds to bigger and bigger things. And it reminds me that I am capable of more than I realize.
Oh, that's great advice.
What's yours?
My hat comes from Jim Collins, who's like an entrepreneur, guy. And he calls this productive paranoia, where instead of like, how when we talked about, your fears of failure and that failure is inevitable, he says, just plan for that. So what you do is you plan for the worst case scenario. You think it out. What will you do if you fail at this, or what will you do if they don't call, or you don't get this, or you fall halfway down through your running race? So go through it in your mind. And he says, actually, it instead of it making you feel disempowered, it actually empowers you. You'll have a plan. So if something happens, you'll be prepared for it. You're less likely to just give up, because it's facing your fears before they happen in your mind. As just a tip for getting through something scary. And it also reminds you that you have the skills to get through something. Really, you do. So you just have to tell yourself and use those skills to make a plan.
Great advice. Really good. Well, listeners, I hope that you're identifying with our very dirty, very lazy strategies. We want you to help reach your goals, but do so in a way that is on your own terms. You don't have to follow the perfect advice of, this person out there or this expert out there. Usually you have all the answers just right in your heart. And we're hoping that we encourage you to trust your instincts and just go for it.
Thanks. And if this episode is helping you, or our episodes in general are helping you, we'd really love for you to leave a review and let others know about us. So you can go on your iPhone and select the purple podcast icon and use the search tool and type in Dirty Lazy Girl. Click on the thumbnail to open it, and then you scroll down to ratings and reviews, and then you can select 5 stars. And then if you want to leave a comment, you scroll down and select leave a review. You type in your review and hit OK. And if you're on YouTube, we're excited to be on there. So subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and leave a comment in the comments.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Dirty Lazy Girl podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Turn on your notifications so you'll never miss a video, and we'll see you next week.